Hey everyone, welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. We are here with episode number 38. I'm Tom, joined as always by Jim. Jim, how are you?
I am good. I'm ready to talk some Ring of Honor today.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have Fastlane in the carpool lane now. They've gotten out of the fast lane. We'll talk about that. The exit lane. There you go. Yep, they've merged and they've pulled off. So we'll chat briefly about that. But yeah, the main content today is the 19th anniversary show for Ring of Honor, and we'll be doing our head-to-head picks and sharing some Ring of Honor anniversary memories. So happy to have you here. Happy to join us as always. Thank you for subscribing and listening. And for those of you watching our YouTube stream, you can see our two handsome faces.
For those who are on the podcast side, I just made a really terrible smile. I haven't looked recently to see what our YouTube streams are, but let's just say it's a good thing we have the podcast side.
One of these days, we're going to do where there's going to be like a big show on a Saturday or a Sunday, and we're going to watch it, and then we're going to say, you know what, both of our schedules allow, we're going to jump on, and we'll do like a live react, and that'll be fun. And maybe people can participate via YouTube in the comment section or something along those lines. We'll see.
Absolutely.
Not today, but down the road.
Absolutely. And actually with this, the system that we use through StreamYard, we could actually even bring people on screen, just like you and I are, which could be dangerous and fun all at the same time.
Right.
Depending on who they are. I think if our good friend Robbie was awake over in Ireland, we'd probably just tell him to type in the comments and not come on screen. But I love you, Robbie. I'm just kidding. Yeah. And just looking forward, just for the record, that won't be happening after TakeOver or WrestleMania for sure, because Tom has some fun family vacation planned over that time frame. So just looking forward on the schedule next week, most likely on Friday as well. We'll drop an episode looking at NXT TakeOver and previewing that. And then we'll have an episode. It'll be in the can, but don't worry about that. That'll preview.
Spoiler.
Right. Spoiler. It'll be Two Spot Monkeys Not So Live. It'll be like the taped Dynamites, but hopefully as entertaining as the taped Dynamite with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker was, and not maybe some of the other taped Dynamites. So we'll drop that probably on the 9th, looking at WrestleMania. But we want to make sure we hit TakeOver early enough since it's happening early in that week. After. Hard to believe we're only a couple of weeks away from WrestleMania, but that's not going to be the majority of our conversation today. However, we'll start with a little bit around that probably as we look our head-to-head update. Braun Strowman and Shane, we didn't even talk about this, but obviously we're going to throw that match out because as we suspected, it did not happen, although they did something there on the show, and we'll probably talk here in the recap a little bit about that. But I was dead right on every one of my picks, which, of course, we only had one that we disagreed on, if I remember right, Tom.
That is right.
Which was the Alexa Bliss, Randy Orton. So I got that one right. Tom got it wrong, which puts us – Tom, what are the records at? I know you've got them probably in front of you.
I do, yes. So entering this weekend and entering the ROH Pick'em, Tom 32-7, Jim 31-8. So a one-match difference.
One match difference. We've got 10 matches we're picking here. We've got at least 8 matches we're going to be picking next week for TakeOver, and then who knows how many for WrestleMania by the time all is said and done. My assumption is we're going to be looking at, certainly more than 10 there.
Yeah, there's 8 for sure right now, and you have to think that between SmackDown and Raw happening before we record next, probably upwards of 10.
Yep. And there might even be a couple that aren't officially announced by then that we can see are obviously going to be happening, and maybe we'll even toss those in. We'll see how that plays out over the next week or so. You figure there's probably in the neighborhood of 30-ish matches over the next few weeks that we'll be picking. So lots of opportunity for us to have a major swing one way or the other. Depending on, now, obviously, a number of those matches we're probably going to be very similar on. I think there are definitely some matches here in Ring of Honor that will probably be similar on, but I definitely think there's some that we have a chance at least to be different on. We'll see how that all plays out. Tom, you got a chance to actually watch Fastlane live. Is that correct?
I watched one match live on Sunday night in between March Madness games, and then I completed it on Monday. And I actually have some positive things to say about Peacock. So yeah. So first and foremost, just running down the results of Fastlane for the sake of listeners and our conversation. I think that's a little bit helpful. So let me pull those up real quick. Fastlane 2021 opened up in the pre-show with Riddle defending the U.S. title against Mustafa Ali, and apparently, or what would seemingly be the breakup of Retribution afterwards. Talk about something that did not ever meet the things that it could have met or be what it could have been. Women's title match.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. They didn't follow up on that at all on Raw, did they? Do you know? Did you see Raw?
They did not. There was
Okay,
no follow. So. Yeah, there was no follow up at all. Women's title match: Nia Jax and Shayna retain over Sasha and Bianca. That match had a little bit of a funky finish. We might talk about that here. Intercontinental title: Big E defends over Apollo Crews. We're not going to talk about what happened with the 24/7 Old Spice cross thing. That was goofy.
I was planning for an hour on that, but all right, fine.
Then we had what the Shane McMahon angle issue circumstance that led to what we got, which was Braun Strowman over Elias. Seth Rollins over Shinsuke Nakamura, which actually was a highlight, and would have loved to have that been promoted a little bit more than it was. I think it had been building, but then formally Friday on SmackDown to 2 days later happening on Sunday. The no holds barred match, with Drew McIntyre over Sheamus, which was a battle and a slugfest. Then the Alexa Bliss over Randy Orton match / angle / segment, and the return of the reborn and disfigured Fiend. Crispy fried, yes. And then the main event was the Universal title match with the special guest enforcer Edge that saw Roman Reigns defeat Daniel Bryan to retain, not without chicanery and hijinks involving everyone. And the finish of the match has me really looking forward to seeing what happens on SmackDown tonight. We are recording Friday, so SmackDown will happen this evening. Because Edge attacked both men with a chair in that match. So, I think the big things for me to take away when we think about Fastlane are, we'll start there with Edge being involved. The ref took a bump on on one of the flying knees from Daniel Bryan. Jey Uso got involved. Edge got involved. Daniel Bryan went to hit Roman Reigns with a chair. Roman Reigns moves and hits Edge in the arm. Edge goes down. Daniel Bryan has Roman tapping to the yes lock, so he has a visual victory, and he has a rightful claim as champion. Edge comes back in, hits Daniel Bryan with a chair, hits Roman Reigns with a chair. Roman Reigns ends up pinning Daniel Bryan, and I believe Edge kind of pinfall. I'm having a brain fart moment, or I don't recall that happened, but Edge definitely laid both guys out and was very adamant against both. So on paper or in theory, you'd say, oh, well, then I guess we're headed towards a 3-way at WrestleMania. I hope we're not. I really hope we're not.
I think we are.
And I just I don't know how I feel about that. I'm interested in your opinion.
Yeah, I think we are. I don't know how you could not at this point by having Edge. I don't want to say turn heel, but yet, I mean, it'll be interesting. I agree with you to see how they follow up on it, because it certainly could go that direction. And then have you got two heels? You've almost got two heels and a face with Daniel Bryan again in a triple threat. I mean, this is WrestleMania 30, not all over again, because that had a little different. Unless they do book it where he's got to beat Jey Uso earlier in the match, earlier in the night, or on night one, let's say, since we have a 2-night WrestleMania. Do they do Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso on night one? And if he wins, he goes into the world title match on night 2, which would be very reminiscent of WrestleMania 30, just albeit over 2 nights instead of one, because we're selling night tickets for 2 nights. And I could see that. It would also give Jey Uso a prominent role on WrestleMania, and not just as on the outside for Roman Reigns match. Personally, I would have rather seen Jey Uso get involved, cause Bryan to lose the match, and Edge maybe begrudgingly makes the pin. And I'm pretty sure Edge did not count the pinfall. I think from what I did not see Fastlane, but I think from what I read, he beat them both up with the chairs or hit them both with the chairs and then like stalked out, and another ref came in and made the count. Maybe the first ref woke up or another one came down. I can't remember. But that's my memory of what I read. I wouldn't, swear on a Bible to that. But I would have rather seen Uso cost Bryan the match, and then, Edge begrudgingly makes the count or something like that, where there's still that tension with Daniel Bryan in the world title, but you go to Daniel Bryan, Jey Uso at WrestleMania, and then you just leave Edge and Roman alone. I don't think that's what we're going towards. I think I don't even know if we're going to do the 2-night thing with Bryan and Uso. For Uso's sake, I hope we do, if that's where we're headed. But I think you may very well just see tonight Bryan put into the match, or Bryan has to beat Uso tonight to get into the match or something. They've also done the Daniel Bryan has to beat Jey Uso to get a world title match thing this month already too. So, as much as I say I kind of want to see that for Uso, we have kind of already seen that too. So, I think we're headed to do a 3-way though on night 2. I do.
And of course, we'll talk about that on our WrestleMania preview when it solidifies itself. So I'll reserve judgment until I see things play out. But
I understand your reservation though, because in general, I don't love triple threat matches unless there's a really good reason. And they've started to tell a story why there would be this triple threat. So I do see that. But in general, it's WrestleMania. Like, I want mano a mano kind of thing, for the world titles, especially. I guess I don't mind as much. It is a little bit of a booking crutch, but I don't mind as much when you have what I think we're going to get eventually here for the SmackDown tag team titles, for instance. It sure seems like they're setting up a multi-team situation there. The women's tag team titles, it seems like they're setting up a multi-team situation there. I don't mind it as much there. It's a booking crutch to get everybody on the card. I get that. And especially in this case, where if they're going to pay bonuses out and it has anything to do with ticket sales, which they haven't had in a year, you kind of want to get everybody on the card so that they get a piece of that pie. Now, of course, you control that also. Even if somebody's not on the card, you could give them a piece of the pie. But anyways, that's a business conversation sometime.
Yeah, I'll definitely say I liked the way you laid out what you laid out. I don't know that Daniel Bryan, Jey Uso running that back again makes the most sense, but there isn't another talent that I think you could name right now that fits in that spot outside of Jey Uso.
Unless Jimmy's ready to come back, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But modeling it after, or attempting to rekindle the vibes of the story of WrestleMania 30 and Daniel Bryan's ascension, I can get behind that, I think. Again, we'll see. So the other big thing, of course, is the return of the Fiend. So the Alexa Bliss Randy Orton match was really not a match in any way where they had any physical interaction at all. There's a lot of like Randy Orton hits the ring, coughs up the black goo right away, gets upset, calls out Bliss. She comes out. There's a lot of like stalking around the ring. You had a fire explosion in the ring, which was kind of cool visually from where it was, but I don't know how they did it. I mean, I know how they did it, when I think about it, but like the way that the camera did it, it was just as if the fire went off in the middle of Orton on one side, of Bliss on the other. Then there was a lighting truss that fell and almost crushed Randy. Then they get back in the ring, and the Fiend rips through the mat, comes through the mat, and reemerges completely grotesquely disfigured, but still having some of the same visual characteristics of his previous self. And he causes Orton to go down. And there was a cool visual too, where like a fire shot out of the hole that he came through, which was interesting because obviously this was taped at a different time. It wasn't live, like I'm sure other matches were on this card, because that ring got fixed really quickly before the main event, if that was the case. And then Bliss mounted Randy Orton to get to get the pinfall. No, there was actually like someone I saw on Twitter after the fact, because I watched this all on Monday. That like, oh, Randy Orton's wife's going to be pissed at Alexa Bliss because of how she pinned her man, and then I think Randy Orton's wife even on Twitter was like, you better believe it. Like, I mean, come on, like these are adults. Like it wasn't intended to be a pinfall in a sexual manner.
I was just going to say, I've seen the picture too, and the comments and the, okay, this is going to sound really, what do I want to say, cliche, but the 12-year-olds in their basement who make the comments, because it kind of feels like that's what it is. But yeah, exactly. From what I know of the story, what I read of the results, everything, there was no intent of that sort of thing. There was no even innuendo of any sexual thing happening in that. It's just a bunch of, I don't know. Yeah. But here's my thing. We're all human beings. We all have hormones. I understand that. We also should all have some inner monologue at times. And we can think things, but we don't have to say things. I don't know. There's my PSA for the day. Just, yeah. And kudos to Randy Orton's wife for playing along and just being like, yeah, of course I'm, she's not really mad. I mean, come on. Not that Randy Orton has the greatest record from my understanding of fidelity, but maybe he's grown in that way, as a human being as well. And it's a wrestling angle. Calm down, people.
Yeah, I'll say what happened on Fastlane really was better than what happened on Raw on Monday, where they formally made the match for WrestleMania. And whatever will become of that, I can't imagine it's a straight up singles one-on-one. There's going to be some gimmicks and some gaga around it. That's to be determined. But the way that Raw ended Monday was Orton comes out, Bliss comes out, the lights go out, the Fiend appears, Orton douses him in gasoline and hits him with an RKO. Alexa gets in the ring, distracts Randy. The Fiend comes back, mandible claw. Sister Abigail lays him out, and then they point to the WrestleMania sign, and fire goes off as if it was the Undertaker's entrance. And that seemingly was how they committed to having a match at WrestleMania. Which, I mean, okay.
We've seen that commitment made before, yeah, that in that way. And the Fiend kind of seems like, and I want to be really careful to not draw too much comparison, but kind of seems like he's going to take a little bit of that Undertaker role. Of obviously the supernatural gaga stuff that Undertaker always did. But I kind of wonder too, if they're going to try to, the Fiend is a character that I don't think you can have wrestling in matches every week on TV. I just think he's got to be an attraction kind of thing. And I kind of liked before, now we'll see with the burning, whether they do it, where they sometimes had Bray Wyatt in matches. And then other time, that would lead towards the Fiend appearing. I liked how they did that in the past sometimes. This happy-go-lucky, but yet you knew psychotic Bray, who was doing the Firefly Funhouse thing. And then eventually, the Fiend would come out when needed. But I agree. I hope it's not just a straight one-on-one match. They had it was supposed to be a straight one-on-one match for the WWE title a couple of years back at Mania. And then they did the whole, project maggots onto the ring mat thing. And it was awful. And the match itself wasn't very good. And so I'm hopeful that this can be a little redemption and that they do some gaga, but also keep it in the stadium. We've talked about this before. You've got 25,000 fans there, which it seems like that's the number they finally settled on. Good for them, by the way, for not pushing to the 45. Let's do the safety the first time around, folks. Keep it in the stadium where the fans can have that reaction and everything. Don't get too cutesy with doing things off stage or cinematic. In fact, I don't want to see a single cinematic match at WrestleMania. You've got fans, utilize them. You haven't had them for a year. Do it all in the state. You're going to have some backstage segments, I'm sure, and things like that, but maybe not as much. But keep it all in the stadium. Let the fans react. They're going to be hungry for that. So give it to them. That makes sense at WrestleMania. Anyways, that's WrestleMania. That's a couple episodes away yet. But interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
It will, yeah, and then we can definitely talk about more on this card, but I think the thing I'll close out on is just the whole Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon thing angle. I would definitely say with this, and then carrying over into Monday, Braun Strowman clearly is the babyface. Now, whether you want to support him as the babyface or not, that is a whole nother ball of wax. But it's clear that Shane McMahon, by aligning himself with Elias and Jackson Riker, has definitely gone full heel, and he clearly, faked the injury on Sunday to get out of the match, and then was completely fine, and continues to again verbally bully Braun Strowman, which again, like. I've said this on last week's episode, so I don't want to beat the horse dead again. I just think it's really bad, and this is going to be a gimmick stunt show. Shane's going to climb off a truss and fall and hit an elbow drop on Strowman. This is the popcorn match or the bathroom break on Mania without a doubt. Like I think it's that car crash element of like you should turn away, but you can't help but watch.
And I think it's interesting that this match, along with the Raw Tag Title match, Braun and Shane, as far as Mania goes, that last week or earlier this week after Raw, they announced 3 or 4 matches for each. I think 3 matches for each night of WrestleMania so far, and then these 2 matches are announced for WrestleMania, but they didn't commit to which night yet, which I just think is strange. That like it just feels weird. The other piece I have to say on this, and this goes to Monday night, and Tom, I messaged you about it earlier in the week. Have you seen Raw? Have you finished Raw?
Yes. Okay. Yep. And it ties in here. So yep, go ahead.
Yep. This is where I have to do it. Oh my goodness. So they've added in now when Braun does his run around the ring shoulder block thing that he's done for a long time. And kind of where they've come up with that whole freight train Strowman Express, line. They've added in choo-choo sound effects to Braun doing that.
I would be okay with this if fans were in attendance. So when I saw this play out on Raw, and I had no clue what was going to come because I saw the post you made in the group that we're part of, kind of like calling out the silliness of it, and that's what it is. There's silliness to this, but I would be okay with it if there were fans there, and here's why. I feel like this is kind of one of those things that they would do, like maybe in a pro sports setting. Like let's say someone is called like the silverback, right? So if there's a linebacker nicknamed the silverback, and when he gets a quarterback sack, you have like a gorilla, sound over the PA. That would make sense, right? Or a player gets a block in a game in basketball, or throws a dunk down and there's an and one foul, and whatever like kind of sound effect that you might associate with that player goes off over the PA. That's what I associated this with. Mm-hmm. I think it plays better though with people in the crowd and not in a canned presentation such as the Thunderdome. I don't know. I laughed. I laughed and I smiled. And it is hokey and silly. It's also very WWE-esque. So
it is. And I understand what you're saying. And maybe if it happened like right after, if like after he hit the shoulder block, if he went, which he kind of did before, went choo-choo or, which I'm sorry, but the minute I just did that, I had this visual flashback to 1991 Tugboat. Anyways, I just had a visual flashback to Tugboat, which God love Fred Ottman is not necessarily the comparison Braun Strowman is probably going for. I don't the whole angle is stupid. To use the word that they continually use, it just you're right. It's the popcorn match. It's the bathroom break. It's this will be the match where I'm not upset that you can't pause Peacock. Speaking of which, Tom, you mentioned at the top of this, I don't want to bury that lead, that you had happy things to say about Peacock. I have not yet watched any WWE on Peacock. I've been using the network to watch. I've seen last week's NXT, and then we're actually making the switch from Hulu to Sling here currently. And so I've been watching this week's NXT on Sling just to kind of get familiar with those controls. I can fast forward ads on Sling. Yay! It makes me happy. Anyway, for the stuff I record. So, but let me hear your good news on Peacock. I'm excited to hear this. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so the positive praise that I want to give on Peacock, I'm going to pause on that because I want to just now. Only here's because this
Right.
came out.
I'm going to say something nice, but not yet.
It's not a negative critique because I think there's some validity to this, but I think completists will have a problem with it, and I understand that. So it's broken over the last 24, 36 hours or so that NBC Universal standards and practices are going through the WWE content that they now will be putting on Peacock, and they are making edits. Like, for example, the Roddy Piper blackface against Bad News Brown from WrestleMania 6 and some other culturally or otherwise insensitive things. I understand that. And I understand that you have a standards and practices department that and ethics and a culture that you want to maintain. I also acknowledge that those things that you're editing happened 30, 40, whatever number of years ago, and you could always have a disclaimer there. I think, like with ECW content on the network before this transition happened, there was always please be mindful. This is not indicative of our beliefs, yada yada yada, whatever they said. I think
you used to have a disclaimer ahead of any card that had Chris Benoit on it.
Right. So again, I think that would be sufficient, but I don't think that that's going to put out any fires that people would potentially create. So I understand why they're doing what they're doing. As a completist, I would be really bummed of tuning into WrestleMania 6, for example, and then is my enjoyment of watching the event, if I wanted to watch it in full, going to be lessened because no Roddy Piper Bad News Brown match? No. Likely not. At the same time, like, I want to watch the card in full if I'm paying for something. Now, granted, right now I'm not paying for Peacock. I have that through my relationship with Xfinity and because they're our cable internet provider, but that might not be forever. So I just wanted to name that just because that obviously is a big story that's come out this week. And I know as a world, as a country, as humans, as we evolve continually, there's been a lot more sensitivity around things like this, and justifiably so. I mean, I think that there's a place and a time for, removing like the bad history of things. At the same time, too, like, it's there so you don't repeat it in the same space. So I wanted to call that out and have that be part of our discussion. Any thoughts on your end related to that, or how do you feel?
Personally, the disclaimer is plenty for me, but I agree with you. There is a vocal group. I don't want to say even my majority or minority because I don't know. And I don't know that we can quantify it anyways, but there's a vocal portion of folks. Now, do I think, and I want to be really careful here, but do I think there is a group of folks in the world who will complain no matter what you do? Yes. Probably both directions, frankly. There's probably two groups of people who will complain no matter what you do. I think we see that in our political discourse. I don't want to get into politics here. That's not what our podcast's about. But I think we see that in the world. And as a company that has shareholders, which both WWE and Universal are, you've got to make some decisions. I was disappointed but not surprised when I saw that news, if that makes sense. They also pulled, Vince McMahon using the N-word, which, frankly, I think was a terrible idea even when it happened. The Piper blackface thing probably wasn't a great idea in WrestleMania 6 time either, but I don't know that was looked at that time as negatively as it now is and should be. Again, I want to be clear on that. But the Vince McMahon thing, that word has always been offensive. Not always, but at that point in time, it was still offensive, very offensive, and had been for quite some time. It's not like it was from the 1950s and it happened, which it was still wrong then, but culturally was a different world at that point. In the 90s, early 2000s, whenever that was, it must have been early 2000s that happened. That was a bad idea and should be cut. And that can be cut without feeling like it's such a big cut, like you cut a whole match. I think it's going to be interesting to see, and I have not looked. I'll be honest. I think I've shared with you before. I probably said on the podcast, I have not watched a Chris Benoit match since the events that transpired at the end of his life. I just myself can't do it. I don't begrudge anybody else that wants to watch one. I have watched events that he is on, and I just choose to skip that match. And with the WWE Network, that was very easy to do because I could just scroll down. I use a Roku, and in Roku's, you can pop down each match as its own little chapter, I guess, for lack of a better word. So I could realize, oh, this is the Benoit match. Okay, go down, hop to the next match. Fine. Again, my own personal choice. Those skips like that are not available yet on Peacock. Maybe they will be by this summer. We'll see. I think it will be interesting to see, is Chris Benoit on Peacock? I think he probably is now because I haven't heard anything that he's not, and there are certainly WrestleManias up that he is on. I know there were a couple of WrestleManias that were missing at this point, but it's not like the whole, 6 or 8 or however many he was on are not there. Does Benoit get cut off Peacock? I don't know. That's not as visually offending to people who don't know as the blackface might be. People who are not wrestling fans may not know about Chris Benoit. And I've now said his name more times on this podcast than we probably ever have because we just don't go there. But it'll be interesting to see. I get it. I get it, and I'm disappointed about it at the same time, but I get it.
Yeah. Well, so then let's close on a positive note. So my network subscription was set to expire on the Monday after the pay-per-view. So I watched, as I shared, I watched on the network on Sunday the women's tag match and caught the end of the Riddle Mustafa Ali match. I did not do a toast to the network, so that opportunity was lost on me. So then, because
I've still got it until the 4th. So
there you go. So then on Monday, I didn't know when Monday I would lose access. So throughout my day on Monday, when I had gaps of time and availability I was watching the matches that I had missed on Sunday night. Well, I had gotten to the middle of the Drew McIntyre Sheamus match and had to pause it on the network. And then when I went to go back and hit play, it said I got a message that I couldn't. My access was gone. I was like, okay, well, here's the Peacock test run. So I jumped over to Peacock, and it was promoted right on their main screen for how it was how the app displays on my smart TV, and was able to go right to it. Was able to fast forward with ease to that match, and I watched the rest of the card without any issue at all on Peacock. So my first experience on Peacock and with Peacock exceeded my expectations. I was really nervous, and I shouldn't probably have been because we watched Punky Brewster, the original, and the reboot, some of it. We watched Little House on the Prairie. I have not yet watched The Office, and I should because I haven't yet finished that series before it got taken off of Netflix when I was doing a rewatch. So I should have known that Peacock had the capacity to provide high quality streaming. That they're not brand new on the block, right? But my WWE Network experience and the transition to Peacock, I had a sense of nervousness about that, and it was quickly quelled. Now, mind you, I haven't gone back to watch it since that time. I probably won't use it again to watch anything, I guess, or I think, probably until I'm ready to watch Stand and Deliver Night 2. But I don't know. So at least for now, for the purpose that I needed it for, it met my need right from the bat. So I was thankful for that.
And it sounds to me like, from what I've heard, like the on-demand experience, other than the fact that you can't, choose which match kind of thing and things like that, it sounds like the on-demand experience is pretty decent, pretty good. The live experience, I know they had some issues. And I know WWE put out a statement that basically said those will be dealt with. And that was all they said. So you could tell they probably weren't real happy with whatever those issues might have been. But we've named it. That's why they did Fastlane this way. That's why it was on both the network and Peacock. Because if there would have been someone like me who had access to both, and you did on Sunday, if we would have been watching live, had you flipped on Peacock and there were problems streaming, you could have gone to the network and gotten it apparently just fine. Now, of course, the easy, jump from that is, Well, it happened at Fastlane. They better get it figured out before Mania. That's part of why Stand and Deliver is happening on Thursday night on the Peacock Network as well as the WWE Hall of Fame, which will be on Tuesday night, which is not live. It's taped, but nonetheless, they're going to stream it live, and everything else that they're doing that week. So it'll be interesting. And the funny thing is, I probably most likely won't watch either Stand and Deliver Night 2 or WrestleMania Night 2 live. WrestleMania Night 1, I am planning to watch live. The other ones I'm going to have to watch after the fact just because of other obligations that I have. So I'll get a taste that week of both sides of it, both the on-demand and the live. And hopefully they've got that worked out because I mean, if they have massive problems with the live stream for WrestleMania, whoo doggy, they're going to viewer. That Fastlane's one thing. Mania is, lots of people watch WrestleMania that don't watch any other wrestling show all year, or maybe they watch the Rumble and Mania or kind of, I mean.
Well, and they've promoted that this is the opportunity for more people than ever in the history of mankind, and that's it's a joking statement, but it's true. There'll be more eyes with the ability to watch WrestleMania this year in the way that they can see it than ever before. So if you're looking to reach a new audience, or if you're thinking people that never before thought about this, but it is the Super Bowl of wrestling, and they choose to do that, if they have a poor experience, you get one shot. You get one shot with most folks. And if you don't hit a home run, they're not coming back for more.
Oh, 100%, 110%. It'll be interesting. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And Fastlane was, just to close on Fastlane, it was a quick show. It was nice and tight. I think it was like 2:30, minus the hour-long pre-show, which had the U.S. title match. Again, this is the new era of pay-per-view until fans return. So I don't expect Mania, and now granted it's going to be 2 nights, but I don't expect it to be 2 hours and 30 minutes each night. I expect it to be much longer, probably upwards in the 3.5 to 4 hour range easily. And then we'll see when we get to whatever the May, either late April or May pay-per-view is. I should probably know that Extreme Rules or something like that. Backlash. So yeah, we'll see what that looks like. Coming to you live from the third destination of the Thunderdome.
Yes, moving into a new arena soon, so that the Rays can take back over Tropicana Field. So, well, let's put a pin in WWE because we're going to spend the next 2 episodes at least of this podcast diving deep into NXT and WWE because of TakeOver and WrestleMania coming. And at some point here as well, we'll get in some more AEW conversation as well, maybe next week as well. But we've got 10 matches to get through for Ring of Honor. So let's head into that so that we don't make this another Broadway.
And before we dive into the picks, just quick ROH anniversary memories. We were talking about this before we hit record. Both of us have had the chance to, number one, it should be clear to our listeners that we're both longtime fans of Ring of Honor, and there's a long lineage of our connection back to this promotion, even though that it's not the same thing that we fell in love with back in the day. But we each had the chance to attend some anniversary shows in the past. So just any quick memories before we talk about the 19th anniversary.
Yeah, I've followed Ring of Honor since day one. Mostly was reading results. I was on the Ring of Honor message board. In fact, that's where you and I met. Well, we met in Chicago, but first had any discourse on the Ring of Honor message board. There were a number of events that because you went to, I think it's fair to say, the vast majority of live events for a stretch there, or a lot of live events for a stretch there. Lots of times you and I were connecting and doing results. You were sending them on to me by text, and I was putting them up on the Ring of Honor message board. I always thought it was kind of cool that I was the first person outside of the arena that knew what was happening. I don't know. It's kind of a nerd thing, but
this is all pre-Twitter, right? So like imagine how in today's day and age, and even on Facebook too, this is kind of a little bit pre-Facebook. You can find out something in the split second now when news breaks. It's not how it was when Ring of Honor started in 2002, 2003, 04, 05. So
right, this was text messaging.
Yeah.
This was and you had lots of character limits. So and then the fun part in the message board was you would have lots of people asking for more details. Samoa Joe beat somebody and they're like, well, what move did he use? And was it a good match? And was it 10 minutes? Was it, and it's like, you gave as much detail as one could. And I don't mean you per specific, Tom, but you, because I also would text results sometimes to others when I was at shows. If you weren't there, or, we'd always kind of set that up ahead of time. You try to have somebody texting results to somebody. And you try to give as much as you could, but you're also there to enjoy a show. You didn't want to spend your whole night, texting the whole time either. And it's kind of funny to say that because now you have people who sit at a wrestling show pre-COVID and live tweet the whole darn thing, and are on their phone the whole time. And it's like, I don't know how you're enjoying this. But anyways, I digress. From
experience, I can tell you that the times I've done that, I've missed things that I'm like, why am I doing this?
Right. Oh no, absolutely. 100%. Especially because there were always often post-match angles and things. And so you're on your phone. I can remember vividly being on my phone. I can't tell you exactly what the angle was, but numerous times in Chicago, and I'm on my phone texting, you or whoever, what had happened. And then I'd hear, boom, because somebody, gets power bombed or whatever. And I'd look at my brother and go, what I miss? What happened? And he just laughed because there I am on my phone texting away, Fast Eddie beat somebody or whatever. I don't know.
That's a throwback.
Well, yeah,
Fast Eddie of all people.
The one that came to my mind. Not Homicide, not Bryan Danielson. No, Fast Eddie comes to my mind. So my very first Ring of Honor show live was Reborn Stage 2, their Chicago Ridge debut, which was right after the whole former owner had his controversy. Let's just say it that way. TNA pulled a lot of their talent, so a number of the guys that I was really excited to see weren't able to be on this show, but it turned into really a rebirth for Ring of Honor, and I absolutely loved that show. I enjoyed Ring of Honor before that. I had started to buy the DVDs and was buying all of the DVDs at that point, although I kind of picked, I don't remember what my first show that I bought was, but I kind of picked a starting point to get me up to speed before that Reborn show. And then it went back and ended up, for a while, I had all of the Ring of Honor, or most of the Ring of Honor DVDs. I've got very far fewer now. I've sold most of them. But that was my first show. Walked in, we found ourselves a spot on the bleachers. When we found ourselves a spot at the top of the bleachers, so we had a backrest, which was so much better than anywhere else in those bleachers in Chicago Ridge. Actually walked right past CM Punk and Ace Steel, who were standing there talking to some folks, and now wish I would have asked if we could have gotten a quick picture with them. It was my brother and I. Never did, but alas, oh well. And so that was my first live Ring of Honor show. I was at the third anniversary show that happened. I think I was at just Chicago. That's right. Third anniversary was New Jersey, Dayton, and Chicago. I was at just the Chicago show. I was going to say Wauwatosa as well, but that was Death Before Dishonor. That was the second run in Chicago. Third anniversary was the third show in Chicago. I was at that. I was at every Chicago show for a couple of years until I had to miss one for work or something. But and then I was at the fifth anniversary festival in Chicago as well. So I've been to 2 anniversary shows. Tom, you've been to a couple more anniversary shows than I have, though.
Yeah. So, back to your, one of your first comments, I had at some point, and I know it exists somewhere in, I'm not a hoarder, but I do keep things of like little notes here and there and just kind of like a memory book, if you will. I had listed at one point how many Ring of Honor shows I had attended ever. And I had broken it down at one point year by year. But yeah, I want to say in those first 4 years at least, I want to say that I went to about 50 to 60 shows, which is kind of crazy in the grand scheme of things. But I did it. It was able to happen in my life, for good, bad, or otherwise. And that is there's a lot more to that statement, but that is the reality. But yes, so I was able to go again. I went to the first Ring of Honor show in Philadelphia. Went with my dad and a friend and a friend's friend, and we made a whole weekend out of that. We had actually gone to Phoenix Championship Wrestling the night before, and of course the big draw for us was these guys we'd heard about, but of course Eddie Guerrero as well. And Eddie Guerrero had fought Nova at the Phoenix Championship Wrestling show in Jersey, and we stayed in Philly both nights. But we went and saw Eddie Guerrero 2 nights in a row. That was a big deal. Fast forward a year later. First anniversary show. I mean, we had followed Ring of Honor hardcore. I had been to at least 3, maybe 4 shows in that first year, without a doubt. So I was definitely hooked into being a Ring of Honor fan. And that first anniversary show was huge because Paul London had made his ascension, and there was a bunch of other cool things. Even though the main event of that show was the goofy scramble match, which is not really the one that's revered out of that. It's Paul London versus Xavier. There was a 3-way that led to Paul London in that match. I want to say it was low-key AJ Styles, Paul London. Maybe I'm mistaking someone there. Again, playing off the 3-way from the previous year. And then, of course, there was the brawl angle with Steve Corino and Homicide, which was arguably the scariest live event moment, even though I know it's a work now. I don't think that everyone was clued in that it was a work at that time, and it will ever go down in history for me as the only time I've ever been personally fearful for my safety and those around me at a wrestling show. But it was the angle was hot, to tell you to be in that space. And then not only that, again, I was a previous ECW diehard fan. I loved ECW. It was how I got into tape trading. It was the promotion. Even though I was a Monday Night Wars guy and I loved WWF and I was big into that, and then follow Nitro as well. ECW was always what I wanted to do as a teen and late teen. The violence, the sex, the everything. That was that was the adolescent mind and what I was drawn to. So being able to go to the Elks Lodge in Queens, which had been a hotbed for ECW, was a big deal too. So yeah, that was anniversary show number 1. A year later, we go to anniversary show number 2, which was the launch of the Pure title, and they had the Pure title tournament. That was in Boston. Don't remember a whole lot about that show, but the venue was interesting. We had second row seats. Then I went to 2 of the 3rd anniversary shows in Dayton and Chicago that you had alluded to. Did not go to the 4th anniversary. Did go to the 5th anniversary festival. Had a lot of shows. It was across 6 different events and 4 different venues as I'm looking here on my notes. And I went to the Dayton and Chicago legs of that. That was the interesting one where they ran a completely different venue in Chicago outside of the Frontier Fieldhouse. And I think it was the only time, if I'm not mistaken, that they ran the Windy City Fieldhouse. Not a bad place to get to. I remember the weather being bad at that one, but also a fun event overall. After that, and again, that was 2007. After that, it dies off. And again, I don't want to say that's also the same year or within the year that Gabe Sapolsky got let go and Ring of Honor went through a philosophy change of sorts. It still was very high quality, and I still went to a lot of Ring of Honor shows after that. But I would definitely say my Ring of Honor peak fandom probably goes 02 to 08, and with maybe 07 being where it kind of started to shift and change. But yeah, lots of fun memories from anniversary shows past. Now, being at the 1st and 2nd anniversary, probably the 2 big things, just because of the historical kind of nature of them. The launch of the Pure title, then of course, there's only ever one anniversary, or only ever one 1st anniversary. So, and here we are tonight. They will be broadcasting live the 19th anniversary. I've disliked that in the years that we've had more recently. They've gotten away from celebrating the anniversary in February, and they tend to do it in March because March isn't their anniversary. It's February 23rd, 2002. I know you can't do it on that date every year. That would be unreasonable because they don't always fall on Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays. But just a small nitpick is when they do it in March, it's that's not your real anniversary. It's their anniversary plus 1 month.
Here's hoping that next year, I just fast forwarded to 2022 in my calendar. The 23rd is a Wednesday, so yeah, that's not going to happen. But let's hope it's the 20th or 27th next year for the 20th anniversary. It would be nice. I agree. So thinking back to that 5th year festival, just a quick funny story. Yeah, the Windy City Fieldhouse was an okay venue. We sat back in the corner. We had general admission seats, I believe, my brother and I, and sat back in the corner, kind of, yeah, in the corner is the best way to say it, on folding chairs. And for the first probably half to 3/4 of the show, we could hear the basketballs bouncing on the court just directly behind us, because there was just the curtain kind of pulled between the courts where the wrestling show was happening, where basketball was being played, and there were referee whistles and things, and so it was a little bit weird. And then I don't remember exactly. I would have to go back and look at the show results. I don't have them in front of me right now. But Delirious did a run in after the match to make the save for somebody, and he ran in from the corner where we were because we came through the crowd, kind of thing. And my brother had recently injured his shoulder, his right shoulder, I think it was. And so he was sitting, and he and I were kind of sitting, and Ted was on the edge. I was to the inside, I guess, although my memory is that it was kind of 2 chairs that were kicked. We kicked them off to the side a little bit anyways to give ourselves room. And so while Delirious is waiting to make his save, he's right behind my brother's right shoulder that he's just hurt. And he put his hand on Ted's shoulder, I think to alert him that he was there so he wouldn't like startle him or Ted wouldn't turn around and deck him. I don't know, something. And like kind of grabbed the shoulder that Ted had hurt. And then he ran into the ring and he did his whole thing. And I mean, Ted was in pain from this grab that Delirious had grabbed his shoulder. And he's like, I turned around, I almost punched the guy. And then I realized it was Delirious and I probably shouldn't do that. I was like, oh man. So, I mean, and he wasn't like in a sling or anything. It was, so there was no way Delirious could have known that. Certainly not his fault in any way, shape, or form. He was just, he might have been using my brother to hide behind, actually, too, a little, now that I think about that. Because my brother was a big guy and Delirious, yeah, not so big. So he might have been hiding a little bit too, so that people didn't, start yelling out Delirious, Delirious, or whatever. Anyways, just a funny little story. Yeah, Delirious grabbed my brother's shoulder, and my brother almost killing Delirious without Delirious knowing that he was about to die.
Yeah, I remember very, 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 very specifically about that venue and how it was kind of like, I'm going to call them north-south kind of splits of like a sport court. And like you had the Ring of Honor section with a partition, but it wasn't like anywhere near like a sound barrier partition. So if there was basketball and soccer and volleyball happening on the next couple of consecutive courts over, you could hear that. So like in my mind, I'm like, are you going to be able to hear like whistles and like and buzzers like on the DVD when you play it back? Like, of course, when they had their intros and the music, of course it drowns that out. But like when you're having a match, depending on how quiet or not quiet the crowd is that background noise going to feed into the DVD broadcast? And I don't even remember if that was the case, but I remember sitting there thinking, oh man, what a bummer.
And the flip side of that, if I'm playing basketball on the other court, all of a sudden you hear this like slamming and boom and cheering and loud music. I don't know. It would have been distracting, but yeah, I think it was the only time they ran that venue, and that's okay. I have a special place in my heart for the Frontier Fieldhouse, so I was glad when they got back there. They've run a couple others in Chicago as well, but for the day that you and I can both get to a Ring of Honor show live again, Tom, I'm looking forward to that, and it'd be fun to be at one together as well. Well, let's look at this one, which neither of us are going to be at because they've already taped it, let's be honest. But tonight's show is going to kick off with hour number 1, and we're going to talk about one of the matches in hour number 1 now and one of them in a little bit, because we want to do it kind of in order of importance, maybe, I guess, for lack of a better word. But we've got a 4-corner survival tonight. Nothing on the line, as far as we know. It's not like for a TV title shot or anything like that. But all of these folks, I believe, are in the TV division. So maybe if that matters, but it's Dan Hausen versus Brian Johnson. And they've obviously had a little bit of a situation going on with the two of them. LSG is the third gentleman. And then Eli Isom is going to be the fourth guy. And let's see, I'm behind, so I'll get the first pick on these. So interesting four guys who are all young and I think have some upside. So that's good. Kind of wish we had Tony Deppen somewhere in here or Fred Yehai. Interesting that neither of those guys appear here. But yet nobody in this one that I would say, oh, well, what are they doing in here? Hausen, Deppen should be here instead or something like that. Eli Isom got a big win last week, big singles win over Ray Horace, 1/3 of Mexa Squad, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Got to be honest, I didn't see that win coming. When I heard saw that match was happening on TV, I was like, okay, Ray Horace gets a win here to build towards his 6-man title shot, that he's involved with at the pay-per-view. So I didn't see Isom getting that win. LSG has also had some good showings and big wins. And Brian Johnson and Danhausen have mostly been tangled up with each other, although Johnson did lose a match to Dak Draper a while back on TV or week by week. I can't remember which one it was. But, four-ways are always a little bit wonky. You just don't know. You can go lots of different ways with them, depending on if you have some sort of an angle coming out of it. Do Brian Johnson and Danhausen kind of not eliminate each other, because this isn't elimination rules as far as we know, but do they kind of take each other out of the picture and it comes down to LSG and Eli Isom one-on-one? I think that certainly got a possibility to it. Because Isom got such a featured spot just a week ago, I'm going to go Eli Isom in this match, but I won't. When we do our picks for our fantasy wrestling league that we often talk about on here, we do confidence points. Because it's a four-way, it probably would have been my one anyways. And with the four guys here, I could see any one of them getting the win. There's nobody that I look at and go, oh, there's no chance that person wins. More than likely, I see Brian Johnson taking the fall just because it plays into his gimmick so well. Him losing actually does him more than I think winning does right now, building that gimmick of just this angry, angry man. But I think Isom gets the win.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said here. It's an interesting thing. I was trying to, when you were starting to share your feelings on this match, look up and see if I could find the rankings. I wish, and I'm not able to navigate quickly enough, even if they're available on the website. I know they release them in week by week, which is one thing, but it's a visual video. Like, so to have them posted like AEW does via Twitter and probably on their website, I'm guessing there would be ideal, because I do think this in a way is a TV title eliminator match, if you will. I went with him to be the winner of the four-way at Final Battle, because I wanted to see him versus Dragon Lee. I hope that, and they still have built him in the interim, not as regularly, because they've had their focus and they've had more talent featured and more stories featured as they've built to this card. But I'm going to go with LSG. I think that maybe he beats Eli Isom, and then Isom looked strong, and that helps boost LSG towards a higher spot and a title shot. Yeah, I think Danhausen and Johnson are there to lead to whatever their issue will become. And I think they still really want to get behind LSG. I think that they had more momentum in the fall, especially when he took Jay Lethal to the draw, and that is not really forgotten. But the striking while the iron is hot, which you could have done after that, has not had the follow up that I would have liked. So we out of the gate we differ on picks. So there we go.
There we go. So when Isom gets the big win tonight, I will be, because that probably will be the first match, I assume. I'm guessing they're going to start with that and then do the 6-man title match, since that is also on our number one. But we're going to talk about the 6-man a little bit. So we'll be even when Eli Isom gets the big win tonight on our number one. Or I'll be 2 down. Or we could be even if Danhausen or Brian Johnson wins this. I mean, this is one of those matches where nothing could happen to our standings as well if we're both wrong. So, well, let's go to the match that I'm just looking forward to more than any match on this card. Note heavy sarcasm. I have made crystal clear on this show my dislike for Flip Gordon. But Flip Gordon versus Mark Briscoe, they've done a decent job, kind of giving a reason for this match. But Tom, you've got the first pick on this one. So, You going with Briscoe or my boy Flip?
Yeah, I'm going with your boy Flip, and I feel like this is a double whammy for you because you dislike him, and then he's going to cause you to have to make up ground against me potentially. You probably will pick him too if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, there's no reason for Flip Gordon to not win here in my opinion. He's more he's actually had more of a story brewing in terms of like the mercenary, and he got banned from the pure division. So now he's only eligible to fight for the world title, world title or the TV title. I think the TV title probably is the spot, but he does have a world title shot in his back pocket. Yeah, I see Flip Gordon beating Mark Briscoe here. Briscoe he's a tag wrestler by nature. Like the only thing, if Mark Briscoe wasn't in this, and this issue wasn't at foot, he'd be part of the four-way because Jay Briscoe is tied up with his opponent. So yeah, I expect this to be a good match. These are both talented wrestlers. Personal beliefs about Flip Gordon aside, he is good in the ring. Now, granted, I think like he's not as hot as he once was as an in-ring property. That doesn't mean the talent's not there. So yeah, Flip Gordon's my pick.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I can't say that Flip Gordon's not a talented wrestler. He doesn't click for me personally in the ring too, but it's not because like he's sloppy or anything like that. I don't know. And it's probably just my own, like, as I've said, my own thing about just how he handles himself on Twitter and some of the things he talks about that as a person, I just shake my head. And that bleeds over. Yeah, we've gone down the road. I don't need to explain my dislike for Flip Gordon too much more, other than to say that it pains me to say he's going to win this match. You're 100% right. Could they do he slips on a banana peel and Mark Briscoe rolls him up kind of thing, and it makes him even more mad about things? Sure, they could. But that to me feels like a TV angle, not a pay-per-view angle. If they were going to do something like that, excuse me, they could have done that to lead to this match or something like that. They wanted. Briscoe kind of already got his revenge for Gordon costing he and Jay the tag title shot by interfering and causing Flip to lose to Flamita, which I was happy about for so many reasons. Not the least of which is, yes, my dislike of Flip, but I also really do like Flamita, as I said before. But Flip, like you said, he's got a world title shot. He certainly, as a singles competitor, is more featured than Mark Briscoe. I'm glad that they give us a reason for this match, at least, and a couple of weeks reason, a couple of steps on the story to get here. So I am glad for that, because I think sometimes Ring of Honor can book matches that I'm like, okay, why? And we've got one or two here on this show that are a little bit that way. That there's some story, but maybe not enough to make me think it's worthy of the anniversary show. But this one, I think they've done a nice job over the last few weeks, month or so of doing that. So yeah, Flip gets the win. Enough said about him. All right, we go to a match that has some story, and this is one of the ones that I was kind of alluding to. And it does have some story, but again, I feel like, gosh, this could have been on TV. I don't even know why this needs to be on the pay-per-view necessarily. But Josh Woods versus Dalton Castle, we have seen the return of Silas Young, who is looking to get the tag team back together with he and Josh Woods, and definitely had a more aggressive tone, kind of a little heelish tone in his promo when he confronted, I guess, for lack of a better word, Josh Woods, and kind of saying, why don't we get back to kicking butt instead of you being a little bit your goofy self, because Josh Woods is a goofy guy, at least the character he plays. And I kind of assume that that's, him turned up a little bit, his own personality turned up a little bit, which is kind of what made Two Guys One Tag somewhat entertaining. Is you have Silas, who, on camera last laughed in 1953, and Josh Woods, who's a little more goofy. Silas might be a total crack up in real life. I don't know. I've never, I've seen Silas Young lots. The only time I've ever seen Silas Young crack a little bit, you might remember this, Tom. You were there. We were sitting together at Dragon Gate USA show, and he used to come out when he was in his AAW days. He used to come out to "Don't Stop Believin'" by Journey, and he came out, and I want to say it was just the intro, or or wherever the song ended, we all as the crowd just kept singing Don't Stop Believing. And, he just kind of stood there and looked out of the side of his eye at all of us. And you saw a little smirk on his face, like, well, guess I'm over at least, or my song is. So Silas, I think, plays a role here. I don't think there's any question that Silas plays a role. My question is, does Josh Woods take him up on it? And do we see a more aggressive side of Josh Woods, which would be interesting since Dalton Castle seems to be leaning towards the heel side as well. Or does Silas try to interfere and Josh doesn't want him to, and we have some sort of a breakup of Silas Young and Josh Woods. I kind of feel like that's more where we're going, because I think they see a lot in Josh Woods. They've been pushing him as a singles since the restart. He had a nice run in the Pure Title tournament. I don't think putting Josh Woods back into the tag team with Silas Young makes the most sense right now. As much as the tag team division could use some tag teams that are established or become, a real tag team and not just kind of, let's be honest, although they're members of the same stable, right now our tag team champions are two singles guys who are thrown together. Frankly, even Lethal and Gresham were kind of two singles guys who were put together. They had a nice little run as tag champs, and they had they told a story why they were together. But I like tag teams like the Briscoes, like Sons of Savagery, who are tag teams. I grew up in the 80s. We had the Killer Bees and the Heart Foundations and the Bulldogs and the Demolition and Road Warriors. That's what I like, is tag teams that look like tag teams. Two guys, one tag could be that. I always kind of felt like they were two singles guys, though, too, even when they were tagging. So I think Young gets involved and somehow ends up costing Woods this match, which I feel weird saying I think Dalton Castle's going to win, but I think Castle gets the win, but I think it's much more about Josh Woods losing than it is about Dalton Castle winning. So I'm going to go with Castle and feel totally unsure about that.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Castle too, but my reasons are different. So there was a segment, and I forget if it was on TV or if it was on the week by week, where like by virtue of Castle's win over Woods, he was back in the rankings for the Pure title. We'll talk about the Pure title and the Challenger momentarily. I actually would prefer to see Castle rise back up to that. I think this is the way he does that. This is not a pure match. That's the one thing that they've done. They said the previous two matches between these two that were a 50-50 split were both pure matches. This being a straight-up wrestling match, I think lends itself to having Silas Young interfere because he can't get fired. Because that's, again, if it was a pure match and he gets fired. I do think the long-term story is Woods and Silas, and perhaps, he, by way of him losing here, whether by hook or by crook or Silas' involvement or lack thereof, it's the motivation that Silas says, hey, listen, Josh, I told you we're better as a team, but then in that team setting, they still don't click, and they're used to boost the team towards a future title shot and their eventual feud and breakup. So yeah, my pick is Castle as well, and I think that the intent then is that Castle is, which is surprising because 2 months ago, at least based on the rumor mill, his Ring of Honor future was uncertain, and he certainly seemed to have been at the bottom of the barrel. So he's working his way up, and I think eventually a pure title shot is where his destination will be. So I can't disagree with your pick, and so we match there. Castle is my pick as well. I'm actually excited for this match. They actually, the two TV matches they've had were good, so I'm eager to see them, again, hook it up again. And I almost want to say without the constraint of pure rules, but because they're not a constraint, they can be used creatively. But now just in a straight wrestling match, the handcuffs, I don't mean that in a bad way, but the handcuffs of the pure rules are off.
No, and I think you're onto something there. It does involve, it, like you said, it allows for Silas to be involved because of that rule about being fired. And I do think for a while, Ring of Honor got a little too reliant on the pure rules. So I like that we only have one pure rules match on this show, and it should be for the pure title.
Fear not, there's a pure rules gauntlet match on TV this weekend. So
I saw that. And it probably will be very good. But have they said who's in it?
I have not seen, no.
Okay.
So I made the mistake of not having my DVR set to record Ring of Honor last weekend. So the first Ring of Honor TV episode I've missed in full since they've come back, or maybe one other time I missed some of it and without a recording issue due to sports. So I'm actually, when I'm making some of these picks, I feel like I'm totally, or not 100% in the clear. I feel like I might have missed storyline stuff from last weekend's episode.
Well, and that'll be a problem I have moving forward, because since we're dumping Hulu Live, we'll keep Hulu, but dumping Hulu Live, I will lose my weekly recording of Ring of Honor. I'll be able to watch it after Monday night at 6:00 when it debuts on Fight TV, because it's free there. But I am going to have that problem as well moving forward. There is a Fox Sports Network on Sling that plays Ring of Honor a couple of times a week. It did just play actually last week's episode at one point, so there might be a chance for me to catch that too, but I haven't figured out the recording. They're also playing some older episodes at times, so I just have it set to record anything that says Ring of Honor, hoping that I'll catch it at some point. So let's move on to what's going to be apparently a cinematic match, or at least not in the same arena as the rest of the show. Matt Taven versus Vincent. Obviously, this match has been built big time. Tom, you've got the first pick on this one. What are you thinking about Taven and Vinny Boy?
Yeah, this actually, in full disclosure, I'm not renewing Honor Club. I'm not paying the $10 to be able to get this show. We'll talk more about what motivated that decision later. So I'll be following along online and following along in a couple of places that I get results, to be eagerly anticipating reading about how this show goes. It was interesting. I saw a tweet yesterday, and I don't know if it was like a legitimate tweet or a paid tweet, where someone had said the Ring of Honor 19th anniversary show was going to be the best pay-per-view thus far in 2021. And I don't know if that was someone just being like braggadocious, or if they had inside information and it really does kick some major butt tonight. I hope the latter, for the sake of like high quality wrestling. And if that, if I hear, hey, there were, 5 4-star matches, that might change my opinion, and I might plunk down the $10 and want to watch this on demand later. I don't have the faith that tweet was not just a fanboy being like, yeah, Ring of Honor, raw, because I think there's a lot of Ring of Honor fans, and I think the Experience Group is the best place to capture this. Is they only wear Ring of Honor colored glasses, and anything else outside of that is not worth a darn. That's not what we're here to talk about, though. You asked me about my opinion on this match. I am excited about this match. The cinematic element, is this not Ring of Honor's first attempt at that? I believe it is. I mean, obviously, of course, everything that they've come back with since the relaunch has been all in the can, so they've had a chance to do post edits where and when appropriate. But I think this is a different kind of take on that. I think it makes sense here that this feud ends, but I don't know that is the case, because I don't know what you do with Taven or Vincent and their collective factions going forward. I mean, actually, I think it's easier that you could have Taven and Mike Bennett go on the run for the tag titles, and that actually would probably be a good use of both of them. They're also both solid singles guys too. So again, do you want to end up in the same spot that we talked about earlier? Like you have a La Faction in Gobernable situation where there's 2 single guys holding the belts, or the previous Lethal and Gresham combo. Because it's unsanctioned and it won't count for records, and I don't think that the feud is going to end here, I'm going to say Vincent wins, and I'm going to say that other guys, other people, other entities from his faction get involved. It's going to be low on the confidence point meter when I make this pick later. But I think the story's not over. So that's why I think Vincent gets the win.
Yeah, I hope that the cinematic portion of, however they do this, is more AEW Street Fight and or Gargano Ciampa Final Beat, in that it's more, because they're going back to the arena that they got their start in, which is an interesting little twist into the story, a little nugget of something. But I hope it's just that it's there because that place means something to them, and this is where it's supposed to end, and all of that kind of thing. And not, Vincent hasn't done too much hocus pocus kinds of things. It's more just the violence. that he brings. I think it's also interesting. I noted on Ring of Honor TV this past week, there was a promo that got absolutely no mention for some character who was saying that pure wrestling, yes, is part of Ring of Honor, but Ring of Honor is also known for its violence, and violence is coming. Now, I think that could be Brody King, and re-pushing him, even though, yes, he reappeared a couple of weeks ago. He has mentioned violence numerous times in promos. I think it could be Brody King. It could have something to do with Vincent and his crew, or it could be somebody who totally has not been shown yet on Ring of Honor. I think it'll be interesting to see where that leads. I wanted to just kind of mention that, and here seemed like a possibility to do it because of the violence involved here. I'm going to go the other way. I think Taven wins it, and we move on from this feud. It's been over a year this has been going on. I've enjoyed it. I think Taven, I agree with you. I think Taven and Bennett moving on to the tag ranks probably makes a lot of sense. I think there's a little piece of me, if Vincent were to win, that would think I've had an uneasy feeling about the Taven Bennett alliance the whole time. Bennett's almost seemed too happy to be back and be with Taven. And so it made me think, is Bennett going to turn? But Bennett and Bennett Bateman have a match this weekend on TV, I think.
Beer City Bruiser.
Oh, that's right. It is Beer City Bruiser, which makes sense from Beer City Bruiser having his turn, I guess, for lack of a better word, a month ago or so, which has not been followed up on until this point, really, other than a short interview segment where he and Brian Malonis had some more arguing. That's another story that we apparently Ring of Honor is going to get back to. Maybe we'll see here. So I guess it doesn't make sense to have Bennett in that situation and then also have him turning at the pay-per-view on the same weekend. So I just don't think we're headed towards that, at least here. Maybe somewhere down the road. All that and none of that supports my pick of Matt Taven. So all that to say, I just think it's time to move on from this. I think it's been a really well-told story. I like that they've kept them kind of apart for the most part now recently, so that now when they have this match, you're like, yep, I want to see Matt Taven tear him a new one. Now, I know Matt Taven is a polarizing figure for a lot of folks. I know you're not the biggest Matt Taven guy, and I'm not either. I was much higher on him years ago when he beat Adam Cole for the TV title, and I was sure Adam Cole had been signed to WWE at that point. It was still another year or so before that happened. But I've been bigger on Taven in the past, but I just think this is time. I think you move Taven on. I think it'd be interesting to see where does Vincent and his crew go after this, because there's not a obvious next move. And wherever it goes, it probably is a step down from this, to be perfectly honest. But we'll see. I don't know. I like Vincent and Bateman. I like as characters. I like their dark, violent kind of thing. I think Bateman's actually pretty darn good in the ring. I think he's got more potential than just being the number 2 in this group. So I think, be interesting to see if they can get behind Bateman at any point. But Taven, long-winded way to say Taven is my pick here. I just think it sets up for that. Well, we're going to move on to a match that we should have had at Final Battle originally, but unfortunately, due to COVID concerns, EC3 was unable to be there at that night. And in the end, maybe it worked out okay, because we're still getting this match, and we ended up with a really good Jay Briscoe, Shane Taylor match at Final Battle in its stead. So, well, this would have been great to see back then and would have made a little more, they had to kind of keep this thing rolling to get it all the way to the anniversary show. I think they did okay with that as well. So Jay Briscoe and EC3 in really what will be EC3's biggest test certainly to date in Ring of Honor. Biggest match certainly to date in Ring of Honor. Biggest match, I would say, since he's left WWE, honestly. He had the little run in Impact, but even then that was mostly cinematic stuff and mind games with Moose and, all of those kinds of things. And I don't follow Impact as closely as I'd like to. One nice thing with Sling is I do have access now with Sling. So Impact has been added to my recording schedule. No idea when I might find time to actually watch the show ever, but it's at least available to me now. So there's that. Kenny Omega was on it this last week, so maybe I need to go back and at least see, try and catch it at some point. in all the extra time I have in my life. But Briscoe and EC3 here. My pick first. Yes, sorry. I had to think about that for a quick second. It was a whole minute and a half ago that I finished talking about Taven and Vincent. I couldn't remember who finished that one yet. Briscoe and EC3. So this is weird for me. This is one I've said this a number of times that I can't put really high confidence points on because I can feel like it could go either way. I kind of feel like EC3 needs the win for his own ascension in Ring of Honor. And yet it seems like the story is he wants to test Briscoe, and can Briscoe, control his narrative, basically. And so then on that side, I think Briscoe gets the win, and EC3, there's some sort of fist bumper acknowledgement, like, see, I told you, I brought this out of you kind of thing. So I'm really torn on this match, to be perfectly honest. Briscoe got the one win against him, or no, EC3 got the win against Briscoe in their one match a while back that lasted like 87 seconds or something in a DQ because Briscoe wouldn't stop kicking him in the corner. Am I right? Does that sound right, Tom?
Yep, that is correct. Yep.
So EC3 got his win and proved his point that Briscoe couldn't control himself. So the story here is more than the match, frankly. Gosh, man, I just don't know which way I want to go on this one, Tom. I'm going to go EC3 because I just think to establish him in Ring of Honor, he needs a win. And a win against Jay Briscoe is one of the bigger wins you can get in Ring of Honor anytime. And if you're going to ascend EC3 into anything else, I just think he needs the win here. And maybe even then there's a see, I told you or something. I think this story continues past here. So I think EC3 wins.
Yes, I agree with you that I think the story does definitely continue past here. I think that you have to give, as Ring of Honor, the win to EC3, even though I like what you've presented in terms of Jay Briscoe winning and proving that he was able to control his narrative would be a longer storytelling thing. I still think that a pinfall loss or a loss of some sort that's not super fluky for EC3 hurts him more than it hurts Jay Briscoe. Jay Briscoe, for me, he's a guy that's evergreen in Ring of Honor, where I think losing pinfall doesn't damage his aura. He will, unless he were to he's not Dalton Castle. When Dalton Castle went on the losing streak, you were like, oh man, maybe the sun is setting for him here. I don't think that that's ever going to be the case for Jay Briscoe. So we have similar picks here. I do agree with you. The story is not over by any means. I'm interested to see how it plays out, and really how EC3 over the long term, is presented and promoted in Ring of Honor. He clearly was a big name, ready to launch at the end of 2020. COVID restricted that. Is this the reboot necessary? Is this feud longer than this? Does it involve Mark Briscoe at some point? Who else might involve? Like, what is the intent of controlling your narrative, and what does that mean? I want some more meat on that from like the EC3 perspective. He's given us a couple promos, but I'm going to be honest with you, like, they're not landing with me. EC3 also has been a talent that really has never connected for me. I think like the last time I really cared about him was in his last NXT run, which was very abbreviated, very short. But like I thought, okay, hey, maybe this is the spot or the time where that he does something. And I think maybe there was 2 or 3 weeks where I was like, cool, and then I was like, okay, never mind. I hope that's not the case here. Because if there was ever a pond for him to really shine in, the pond is Ring of Honor.
Agreed, totally. Well, Tom, you get the next pick on our 6-man title, the first pick, I should say, on our next match, the 6-man title match, Shane Taylor Promotions, Shane Taylor and the Sons of Savagery against, am I saying that right? Sons of Savagery? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yep.
Versus Mexa Squad of Bandito, Flamita, and Ray Horace, a return match from Shane Taylor Promotions, winning those 6-man titles a couple of weeks back, a month ago, maybe now, or more back, on the TV show as well. So, Tom, what are you seeing for Shane STP and Mexa Squad?
Yeah, so I know we're going to get into the title match section of all of these picks, and I know that there's been some stuff that we'll talk about that's maybe changed, perhaps how we would have picked. This is one of those ones where I didn't see the titles changing at all. I don't know why you would give the belts to Shane Taylor Promotions to remove them now. The one flaw of operating in a COVID world is they have not done much in the way of promoting 6-man groups, 3-man groups challenging for this. So this match on paper makes a lot of sense. I think there's better use of Bandito if you were to personally ask me. He's to me, he's the talent in this group, from a pure in-ring perspective. But I understand why they're doing this. Shane Taylor Promotions continues to have a steady run. I don't know who they then face next down the road. In the same breath, like when we were talking about Taven and Vincent, I understand your pick and it makes a lot of sense when I logically think about it, because I can't see them waiting another 3 months for Best in the World in June for them to reconvene that feud. And again, it can play out on TV over time, but it also maybe doesn't. So that's why you might be spot on with your pick. I hope you're not, but here in that same vein, I think you bring this Mexa squad group maybe to an end, and then I don't know how long in the world Ray Horace and Flamita are in Ring of Honor. I think Bandito definitely sticks around. World title, TV title picture, but in terms of the 6-man group, Shane Taylor Promotions is where the spotlight should remain. I want to see Shane Taylor do more, but I think we might have to wait longer to do that for him in a singles capacity.
Yeah, so you and I are both big fantasy football players. I don't know what fantasy football podcasts, news, that kind of thing, who you follow, who you listen to, those kinds of things. But I listen to the Fantasy Football Focus. Anyways, so out from ESPN daily during the football season and weekly during the off season. There is a point to this that I'm getting to that has to do with this match. But Matthew Berry is a part of that podcast, and I follow him on Twitter, and he's on ESPN all the time and all of that. For the last couple of years, he's had a thing that he's kind of pounded called hashtag Free Aaron Jones. The Green Bay Packers. He wanted to see Aaron Jones just get unleashed as the guy in Green Bay as far as the running backs go. And frankly, he's right. Even as a Bears fan, I can say that Aaron Jones is an absolute beast. I was very disappointed to see that the Packers re-signed him because I was hoping he could lead the division. But that all being said, hashtag Free Bandito. Bandito is lost in this 6-man stuff with Mexa Squad. Mexa Squad's super talented. I like their matches. I really do. But Bandito can be so much more for this company. And then if you keep Mexa Squad even as a unit, maybe they're kind of the New Day-ish almost. Obviously in a very, very different character setting. I would be fine with Ray Horace and Flamita really starting a run in the tag division together. I think that could be an interesting tag. Bandito and Flamita are a great tag team, but I just think Bandito has so much more to offer as a singles. So Horace and Flamita, I think, would be a great addition into the tag team division in Ring of Honor. I think from all of that, you can tell Shane Taylor Promotions keeps the titles here. I agree. You don't flip them to Shane Taylor to then just flip them right back to Mexa Squad. I might think about this more and have more questioning if they were defending against just about anybody other than Mexa Squad, unfortunately. And I say that, again, with all love in my heart for Mexa Squad, because I like all three of those guys a lot. There's no point to put the titles back on them at this point. Agree with you that Shane Taylor as a singles has so much more potential, and I hope that they don't lose that in this. I also love, though, that this is helping to elevate Sons of Savagery, who I think have a really bright future in the tag team division as well. This match is going to be great. There's nothing about this match that's going to suck. This should be a banger of a match, so I'm looking forward to it. They're giving it away for free. Even if you don't have Honor Club, you can catch us on their YouTube page, their Facebook page, their Twitter page, their Snapchat. I don't know, everywhere. It's going to be everywhere. So, even if people are not hopping on Honor Club or not buying it on pay-per-view, which, newsflash, people, don't pay $20 on pay-per-view for this show. pay $10 and get an on Honor Club. Like, I don't even understand. You know, but you still have people who buy WWE pay-per-views for $45 instead of $10 on the network or $5 on Peacock. I don't know why people hate money. I just don't know. But
I don't. You
right,
are right.
I don't either. So $10. I mean, I am going to re-up. I actually have done a couple of retweets on Twitter, trying to win a free viewing of the show through Fight. So maybe if I win one of those, I won't. But my plan is to re-up. I won't see it until sometime this weekend. I won't catch it tonight. But I'm looking forward to this match, nonetheless, is what I'm trying to say. But Shane Taylor Promotions wins this match, the hands down. And then I hope from there, Bandito starts to get featured in a singles way, because I just think he's a superstar waiting to happen. And maybe they were making sure that all of the COVID stuff was over. And I don't know if he's dealt with any injuries or anything like that. But hashtag Free Bandito is going to be my new I'm going to have two, in fact. Hashtag Free Bandito and hashtag Free Peyton Royce. But anyways, we'll get onto that another time. All right. So now we get to the World Television title match. And here's where I know we're going to start to have some conversations around unfortunate changes that are out of Ring of Honor's control, as far as Dragon Lee having to miss this show and the subsequent tapings, obviously, that are happening around the show. So let's be honest, we're not going to see Dragon Lee for a month and a half, 2 months, depending on how many Ring of Honor TV shows they're taping as well. Or we won't see him in the ring, I should say. They could still do some promo stuff with him. You know, they probably will. But unfortunately, not in the ring. He had a ruptured eardrum that required some surgery, which, ouch. Like, that just doesn't sound fun at all. So to me, I hate what they're doing here. They're substituting Kenny King defending the title for Dragon Lee versus Tracy Williams. This match in particular, I hate what they're doing here. You have two other options to me. Either one, you say, you know what, Dragon Lee is injured. He's unable to make the show. So we're going to postpone that title match until Dragon Lee is back. We'll have it on a future episode of Ring of Honor TV. Okay, people understand that. Things happen. Yes, you said every title was going to be defended, but let's be honest, you said every title was going to be defended at Final Battle, and the six-man titles weren't defended there because of COVID-related reasons. Fine. You were able, you skipped it there, skip it here. Or you could do Kenny King versus Tracy Williams for the interim television championship if you wanted to go that route, like they did with the Cruiserweight division over in WWE, although you were unknown when Jordan Devlin was going to be able to come back over, and it's been, you know, almost a year, however long. You know, here, obviously, I think they're thinking Dragon Lee will be back a lot sooner, obviously, than that, because it is just an injury. It's an injury that will heal with the surgery within a fairly short time frame, it sounds like. Just, I'm not. I used to be high on Kenny King. Now I'm a little more lukewarm on Kenny King. So do I need Kenny King on my TV twice on a pay-per-view? No, I don't. And I don't want Kenny King defending the title for Dragon Lee. I just dislike everything they're doing here. I can deal with it a little more in the tag title match. We're going to talk about that in a couple of matches, so I'll save my thoughts on that. But in this match, I just hate what we're doing here. Well, you could have Kenny King lose the title here and cause dissension because Dragon Lee didn't lose it. I just don't think you should do that in this case, in a singles titles case. Spoiler alert for future. In a singles titles case, I don't think you should do that. Shenanigans abound, and I think Kenny King defends the title for Dragon Lee. Now, I will tell you, if Dragon Lee was here, I was 50-50 on this match. I thought Tracy Williams had a real shot at potentially winning the TV title. I don't want Tracy Williams to win the TV title from Kenny King, who does not have the TV title. I don't think that helps Tracy Williams either if he were to become the TV champ that way. So I think shenanigans, and I'm going Kenny King and just registering the fact that I really hate what they've done here.
I echo a lot of your opinions too. I think that it could have been handled differently. I don't want to say better because I don't know what better is. I know that we share a similar opinion that this isn't reaching us the way we kind of hoped it would or anticipate that it would. This is also the same situation in a way. It's different, but it's the same. Where you have a guy now who's defending a title twice on the show. So where and how these matches fall again. So the comparison is Gresham. We talked about Gresham having to defend the tag titles and pure title at Final Battle. We thought how those matches happen impact perhaps how that whichever match happens first impacts how the second match then plays out. I think that's important here. I also think that the way that it's been built is La Faction Ingobernable have been really strong. Here's an opportunity where you can turn the tide and bring back the balance of, I don't want to say the balance of power, but maybe level it up by having a title change or title changes at this event. It still is tough. I'm going to go with Tracy Williams to win the TV title here. I thought he was going to potentially win the TV title here if Dragon Lee was in that spot, even though I want to see a long sustained run for Dragon Lee. He's had it, but I know the COVID pause kind of extends that beyond the norm. I'm very high on Tracy Williams. I think the other question, and this is here and in the other matches, there's been really a level of dissension with Kenny King's involvement in this faction. He's proven himself to Roosh, but I think with the other teammates, members, there's maybe a lack of trust there, perhaps, or maybe I'm perceiving that to be the case when it's not. They could use these matches and title changes, perhaps, to build that story more. We'll see. But I like the idea of us really like getting in the nitty gritty with this competition. So I hope I'm right. And I also think that for Tracy Williams, like long-term story in Ring of Honor, getting him a sustained title run. Again, injuries happen. They're fluky. Ruptured eardrum is no joke. But I think getting the belt here, adds more fuel to this faction fire. But it also, I think, is it's a better spot for Williams.
And I should say I'm very high on Tracy Williams as well. Have been since his Catch Point days. And maybe I'll say more about that in the tag title match as well. But yeah, I like Tracy a lot, and I've said my piece. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with this tonight due to the substitution. All right, we'll move on to the pure title match. I feel like there's not going to be a ton to say here, but Jonathan Gresham defends versus Dak Draper in the one title match involving the Foundation and La Facción de Ingobernables that does not actually involve them fighting each other. We have a Foundation member versus just Dak Draper. Tom, you get the first pick.
Yeah, this is it's surprising. So I care more about the four-way than I do about this, and I really like Jonathan Gresham. I just don't care enough yet about Dak Draper. I think that they made an overreach by putting him in this spot. Do I think that the guy has a world of potential ahead of him? Without a doubt. I think they're pulling the trigger too early here. Hopefully I hear and read that I was wrong and I was surprised that this was way better than people expected or anticipated. Gresham's my pick. I don't see anyone on the horizon that's going to dethrone Jonathan Gresham. Which is awesome, because when it eventually does happen, maybe I'm not even expecting it, and it's a big surprise. But I think Gresham has without a doubt a year plus run as pure champion, if not longer, because we're still his lineage and the reintroduction of this belt is important to have some consistency around it. Even though I think that they've, and especially in that tag title match where the belts switched, the rules were used against the Foundation. So do we see a trend where that maybe continues to work against them, even though that's what they're advocating for? They're finding that it's their Achilles heel. I don't know. I think that's a long-term story you could tell. I don't see that being the case here. That's more of a narrative of the broad approach. Gresham wins. Draper maybe gives us a shot or a vision of what his future looks like, but this and one other match are going to be the two highest confidence points when we make those picks in our fantasy league.
Yeah, not a whole lot to say here. And I know we're likely going for our longest episode ever. It appears because we still got two matches to go. Although my pick here will help us maybe not maybe not do that either. I agree with you. Draper's got a ton of potential. I actually had a chance to chat with Dak Draper a couple of months back when Ring of Honor did their trivia nights. Draper was on our team, my team's team, one time. Really nice guy. Really actually wrestled at Chadron State College, which is up in northwest Nebraska. So when he heard that I was in Nebraska, we kind of had a little, couple of minute conversation about Nebraska. He knew right where I was talking about where I live. And so, I think he's a good guy. I think he is talented in the ring. I think he has a future, but I think they gave him like 3 wins to get to a title match kind of thing. Like they haven't built him enough and made people care about Dak Draper enough yet. I would have Dak Draper in the TV division, not the pure division personally. And I don't think the TV division is necessarily below the pure division. I just think it's a different style. And I think Draper's character would work better in a regular, traditional pro wrestling sense than the pure rules thing. Gresham's winning this. This is my 10, frankly. Maybe they'll shock me and put the belt on Draper, but I feel like I would hate that if they did. I can't see it. They obviously see a lot in Draper and have, I don't know if they have plans, because sometimes I wonder about plans, but I think they want a lot for Draper. But no, Gresham has to win here. And I agree with you. Gresham has to have a long run with his title. I don't see anybody in Ring of Honor right now that, to your point, Tom, that even scratches the surface of, eventually we're going to get to Gresham and this guy. And that's going to be the big match where now we think, Gresham might lose that title. At one point, I thought Josh Woods could maybe get built there, and he still could. But man, you got a long way to go. There's nobody in LFI that I look at from a pure side, and LFI in a pure rules match is a little funky, anyways, which we saw in the tag match. But it's a little funky because of the way they run things, anyways. So I just said a lot more about this match than I thought I would. Gresham wins. Period. Stop. End story. All right, moving on to the tag title match, to the other half of this whole problem with Dragon Lee's unfortunate injury. Bestia del Ring subs for him here to team with Kenny King to defend against Tracy Williams and Kenny King's former partner in All Night Express, which I think is a subplot in this match all along, Rhett Titus. I'm more okay with the substitution here because I think you can invoke the Freebird rule. Anytime you've got a faction like this who has the tag titles, I think it's a little bit of a booking crutch, but look, Dragon Lee got hurt. You want to still have a tag title match? You invoke the Freebird rule. Bestia del Ring jumps in. I'm good with it. I can live with it here. This is where I think the titles need to flip somewhere in the 3 matches. I think the Foundation needs to win some title tonight. Now, they could have LFI just continue to dominate everything, and you're still building towards the eventual titles, title flips to the Foundation. But I do think a title flip to the Foundation makes sense. I've never felt like King and Lee were going to be long-term tag champs. And I've always felt like Williams and Titus, not always, but since Final Battle, when they had that pure title or pure tag rules match, they would make really good tag champs. And I think in the vein of the Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, FTR, workhorse tag team, these could be those guys in Ring of Honor. Absolutely. So this is where I see the titles flipping. I think Tracy Williams and Rhett Titus get the win. I think this is also where there's some more of that, as you said, kind of underlying strange tension that sometimes is there and sometimes isn't with LFI. It's a little disjointed for me, that tension. But I think it rears its head here, whether there's an actual breakup or it just continues to be a slow simmer. Williams and Titus, I think, win the titles here. And I'm so confident in that pick. I'm not sure I'm going to put a real high confidence point on it, but that I picked up Rhett Titus in our fantasy wrestling league.
Yeah, I like that pick, and I'm going to mimic it. I'm going to, I think strategy-wise, I think it makes sense for me to not get too far out of the realm, and we'll talk about our differences here momentarily. So, there's a strategy to this competition. You can't just go with your gut all the time. But if I come back a week from now and we do a quick recap on this, and I go, I should have trusted my gut, I'll acknowledge that for the crowd. But yes, I think that it does make sense for the Foundation to win. I think that the heel end of challengers for a babyface tag team is better. Even though OGK probably isn't a heel tag team, I think that OGK versus Williams and Rhett make a lot of sense. I think Vincent and Bateman, perhaps. I think definitely Silas and Josh. And I think that you use Silas and Josh invoking a title shot, however they might be able to do that, and then losing if it's Rhett and Tracy, give them the opportunity, and especially if it's under pure rules, it gives that breakup eventually of Silas and Josh down the road. Now, granted, we're not even talking about this match. I'm fantasy booking the tag division beyond this, but that's why I think that it makes most sense that the Foundation wins. What scares me, and I didn't say it in the TV title match, but it bleeds over there and here is the DQ finish. And if a DQ finish happens, you could see Tracy and Rhett maybe winning, but not winning the belts, or Tracy winning the match, but not the belt in the television title match. So some way, and again, I wish we knew exactly when these were happening, because of that. I think that influences the picks, but that's also the fun of these picks because you don't know. So you're kind of like going, what do I think I know and what do I expect to happen? And then now watching it play out or reading about how it plays out will be the fun part there. So yeah, Foundation, we have the same picks. I think the Foundation comes out of this event very strong with the TV title and the tag titles back in their fold, which leads us to the final match of this card. But before we get there, I do want to just name, interestingly, we talked about him once already, Brody King, not on this card. The vignette of violence is also part of Ring of Honor. Violence is coming or returning, whatever. That was a very interesting video package. It seems like it would make sense for Brody King, but could there be someone else from Ring of Honor's past? Homicide? I don't know. That could be part of that. There's other guys that come to mind, Necro Butcher, but I don't think he's at all interested in returning or even able to return. And then PCO is another guy that I'm really surprised. I haven't heard a whole lot about. And correct me if I'm wrong, but PCO has not been on TV since Final Battle. Is that correct?
He was in the Christmas match, I believe.
Okay.
I think, so he was on those tapings around Final Battle, but I don't think he was at this last set of tapings because I don't think he appeared. I think you're right.
Okay, so yeah, so just kind of odd that is that's been a gap there. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a Brody King appearance tonight, and or PCO, and or someone else. Someone again, Ring of Honor has done a great job about guys who've come back and returned, not letting that leak out. So that'll be.
And just to speak to it, I think there are some people who are hoping Andrade would show up at the pay-per-view. Andrade got released on Sunday or Monday. This was taped earlier this week, and Ring of Honor and the Maryland State Athletic Commission have very strict COVID protocols, which include a test before traveling and some couple of days before, kind of quarantining in the hotel before they actually start taping things, I believe. They're just timing-wise, I don't think there was even enough time, even if they would have wanted to do that. I just don't think timing-wise that it could happen. So anybody who goes into tonight with high hopes of seeing Andrade, I just don't think it's going to happen. Yes, from the LFI connection and him being a former member of the Ingobernables family, I guess, for lack of a better word, as La Sombra, it would make a lot of sense. And I certainly would have loved him in the Dragon Lee fill-in spot better than I will like Best Day Del Ring. But I just, from a timing standpoint, wasn't going to happen. So would I love to see him in Ring of Honor moving forward? Absolutely. Would love to see. I want to see him anywhere. That guy is super talented. WWE dropped the ball 10 ways to Sunday on Andrade. So it'll be interesting to see where he shows up. Apparently there is no compete clause. So could be soon.
Yeah, I know we're entrenched in our Ring of Honor talk. Let's finish that off, but I'd love to wrap our episode this week as we're going very long with just a quick check-in on Andrade and just what we think we know about how that has played out based on the rumor mill. So we'll get there in a second. But yes, main event for Final Battle. I pick first. The face, arguably one of the faces of Ring of Honor, perhaps one of the guys on the Rushmore of Ring of Honor, Jay Lethal, has earned his title shot. He did defeat Matt Taven in the four-way that happened, and Matt Taven got that pinfall loss clean, but Vita Von Star was on the outside, which again gives more to that Taven and Vincent issue. Lethal winning this, Lethal being the guy makes sense from that four-way when you thought of all of the guys and what their path might be. It also makes sense in the LFI versus Foundation ongoing issue. I didn't see the 8-man that they had on last week's episode to understand like the storyline narrative that's giving us more for this match. On paper, it's a dominant world champion and it's a former world champion, and that should be enough. But I think that you have more tentacles to it because of the ongoing faction issue. I don't see Lethal winning the title here. Roosh retains. Again, Roosh is in the world title picture almost in the same vein of what we talk about with Gresham and the Pure title. I don't know that you can name the guy on the roster for sure, at least on the roster now. Guys could come and go. That will be the person to unseat him as champion, which is also a good thing because then maybe when it happens as a surprise, it's going to be awesome. The guys that have world title shots, I think is it Flip Gordon, Matt Taven, and Mark Haskins. Is that correct?
I believe you are correct.
Okay, so obviously Taven and Gordon, those title shots could be executed in the months, weeks, days, whatever to come. Gordon against Roosh, heel. Taven Roosh, okay, that could be a Ring of Honor TV spot, depending on the outcome of his match with Vincent, where there's actually some push there. Roosh wins. The issue between the feuds keeps going, of course, especially if we have those title changes that we talked about earlier, or they don't happen. I don't know where we go from here with this faction or this feud, but I do think, and again, I know when we talked after the final battle fallout, I said, kind of the 6-month plan, I saw potentially Roosh and Gresham at best in the world, but not in a title unification match, but clearly like some form of faction of them. And maybe it's broader than that. Maybe we get a 6-man, maybe we get an 8-man. I don't know. We'll see. But for now, Roosh to me is the steady, consistent champion, and having re-upped, I think, gives more merit to sticking with him as the face of the company and the world champion.
Totally agreed. Roosh wins this match. Jay Lethal winning the title at this point does nothing for me, to be perfectly honest. You've got both other titles flipping to the Foundation. I only have the tag titles. Partially, I'll also say part of why I think that only one flips. I want to get away from people having 2 belts. I want to spread the titles out so that there's more matches that mean things without guys having to do double duty. So if both of those flip, then Tracy Williams is now that guy. It was Jonathan Gresham, now it's Dragon Lee, then it's Tracy Williams. All very capable of having 2 matches and all good talents that I don't mind seeing in 2 matches as far as in ring. I just think it can help spread the wealth and help build more of the Dak Drapers and the LSGs and all those other people who need some building in Ring of Honor. But at the world title level, Roosh wins. I agree. This continues the feud. Roosh and Gresham, to me, is absolutely where you head, whether it's best in the world or you could drag that all the way to final battle. But you got a lot of story to tell between now and then if you're going to get it that far without people being like, just give us the match so we're done. Goodness. Maybe best in the world is some sort of 4-on-4 street fight war games, cage match, something. I don't know. Options abound, but Roosh wins this match, and we move on to whatever moves next, which continues though the LFI and Foundation situation. So, just to recap, I didn't write down all our picks, Tom, because we'll have them on the site. But we are differing, I know, on the 4-corner match.
Yep, LSG for me, Eli Isom for you. Then I have Vincent, and you have Taven.
Yep.
And then I have Tracy Williams winning the TV title, or at least that match. Whether the title flips or not, that's another story. And you have Kenny King being able to retain for Dragon Lee.
So 3 differences there, which is good and a safe number at least. So even if I were to miss all of them, I'm still only 4 down in the worst case scenario for either of us. or if I were to get all 3 of them right, you'd be down 2 at that point. So thankfully, after this show, neither of us should be totally buried, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
But again, lots of matches to pick over the next number of episodes with WrestleMania. Of course, crazy time of the year, as always, coming. But quick conversation on Andrade just to wrap us up here as we push towards the 2-hour mark. Double Broadway.
We'll try to get out in less than 5 minutes. Yeah,
That's
but
right.
no, the big thing for me that I just wanted to revisit on this is clearly a guy that in NXT, phenomenal run, just phenomenal. Like when you think of the matches he had with Aleister Black and Gargano, and there were other guys too, but like some of the best matches in that time period across the globe. So sadly that he was very underutilized. I do have very fond and vivid memories of his matches with Rey Mysterio. A lot of that happened right before the pandemic, unless it was a year prior. Either way, those were just great matches.
I think shortly before, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was wonderful too. But unfortunately, like the ball was dropped, and kudos for him. Kudos to him for advocating and saying, I have to go and I have to ply my trade in some other place. And there's a relationship. He and Charlotte Flair are together. I don't know. They are engaged. Okay, they are engaged. So she went to bat for him, and she. It seems to be, at least on paper, I know she acknowledged she was battling COVID. It seems that she's given up her WrestleMania spot to allow her fiance to get his release from the company, which speaks to, again, her lineage is not going to be damaged by this. Her missing a WrestleMania, if she ends up missing it, or her not being in the title picture, that'll be the footnote when the career biography or autobiography is written. Hopefully their relationship it stands the test of time. You'd hate to see them not end up getting married and having a long, happy life together because of how she went to bat for him. And then to your comment too, having a no compete, being able to show up perhaps someplace, anywhere, anytime. I'll tell you this, I definitely, knowing that AEW was live, made sure that was my priority viewing on Wednesday. I didn't have high hopes he would show up because of what the stacked card they had already had. But I wouldn't have pulled it past AEW to have pulled the trigger Wednesday. It didn't happen, obviously, and it may not happen and may not materialize. But awesome free agent wherever he lands. I would prefer he landed in AEW or New Japan versus anywhere else right now. But that's my druthers.
He's got the potential, I think, where he could do kind of an EC3 type thing and work in a couple of different places for a little while before he settles into one too. It'll be interesting to see. There's differing reports on whether Charlotte did give up her WrestleMania title spot or whether they decided to move in a different direction. We may never know for sure. You have to think she was involved in the conversations somewhere. She has stroke in that company. We all know that. And she's earned that stroke, frankly, in that company. So, if she did give that up, wow. And I agree with you. It won't hurt her legacy at all. Kills me in my fantasy wrestling league because, I had planned on that. Anyways, never mind. It does set us up. We'll talk more about it in a couple of weeks, but it does set us up for a really intriguing Rhea Ripley and Asuka match WrestleMania. So that part is very interesting to me. But Andrade, I can't wait to see where he lands, to be honest, because I hope whoever gets him uses him the right way, because the guy is talented as all get out. He's kind of okay. He's at least okay, I think, on the mic. His English is pretty good. I've seen some people who say they want to see him and Zelina team back up. I'm okay with that because I love them as a package. I just don't want it to feel like WWE 2.0, like, oh, we're doing this because that's what WWE did. That's my only slight fear in the two of them together. But I did love them as a package. Zelina, she's a strong-willed woman. So I think that might work against her occasionally in that she maybe speaks her mind and some people don't like that who are in power. I don't have a problem with it, obviously, but I'm also not running a company, so it doesn't matter what I think in that realm. She's super talented, and I'm kind of surprised hasn't shown up anywhere yet either. So maybe the two of them as a package deal does get them brought in somewhere. But I'm looking forward to it. Andrade is going to be awesome wherever he lands.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to an end for today. We're trying to really get out of here before the 2-hour mark, and the clock is ticking. So anyway, enjoy Ring of Honor this week if you're watching it. Enjoy whatever else you're watching. We'll be back next week to talk about Ring of Honor and to stand and deliver. Have a great week, guys.
Take care, everybody.